This is Dolany TV. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel. And today, well, you know what? There's a couple of possibilities floating around. I mean, I floated it on draft lottery night, the trade possibility with the number 8 overall pick in the 2019 entry draft. Then, of course, you have to sit here and realize, well, the Oilers aren't accustomed to making super big moves that actually benefit them. So if a new GM's actually scared to do that, just like we've had some other GMs scared to make the right trade at the right time kind of deal before, where does that leave us to trade the 8th overall pick? Well, I don't think that leaves us in a good spot. So if I'm going to sit here and be in camp trade the pick, I also have to consider camp we're going to pick 8th overall. So, okay, you know what? Let's cover it, because I think we're getting into the off season. April 19th, we're almost 2 months away from the draft, so I'll probably have to revisit this video 3, 4, 5 times before then, who knows. But without further ado, let's kind of get to what Sportsnet, I like using Sportsnet because obviously they're the home of hockey, if you understand where I'm coming from. Well, here's the thing. They've got 6 through 10. And there's some familiar names if you've been following the entry draft, if you've followed in the chats on live streams before they got banned, that kind of thing. Alex Turcotte, number 6. Trevor Zegras, number 7. Kirby Dach, number 8. Matthew Boldy, number 9. And Payton Krebs, number 10. So right there you've got yourself 5 guys the Oilers could possibly pick with the 8th overall pick. Obviously the 6, 7 guys would have to fall down the chart. Don't kid me, I'm not stupid, I know how that works. But what I'm saying is we obviously got Evan Bouchard falling into our laps last year, so anyone within this mix of 5 players is very probable to get picked. I don't know anyone off the board the Oilers are going to go grab, so we're not worrying about off the board. We're worrying about 5 through 10, well obviously 6 through 10, that they could grab at the 8th overall spot in this year's entry draft. That being said, we're not trading that pick in this world. So Turcotte is a centerman, 5'11", 189 pounds. That's our first man up to discuss, and I just want to briefly touch on these guys, familiarize myself with the names as much as familiarize you guys with some of the names if you don't know who's kind of all in here as possibilities. So he's an American product, of course. U.S. National Developed Team Juniors in the USHL. This guy's a hot commodity, I guess, in American hockey right now, is Alex Turcotte. That's why he ended up getting ranked 6th overall in the entry draft rankings, right? So on the U18 team, he's had 55 points in 31 games. On the juniors team, he's had 34 points in 16 games. So even better production on the juniors team, which is absolutely unreal. And then you look at the season before, he had 32 points in 31 games. The U17 team, he had 47 points, and the U18 team, he had 16 in 19. So American hockey, if we're not familiar as Canadians, a lot different of a setup by the looks of those stats than Canadian junior hockey. But the thing that he is described as being in the Sportsnet article outlining these draft choices by chance is the best projected two-way game in this draft has been hampered by injuries. He's a centerman, like I said. So, again, okay, to rule out Alex Turcotte, the first thing I have to say is he's a centerman. Because do we need another hotshot, small centerman to play on the third line? I really don't see that. I really don't like that as an idea. We've already got a guy who's capable of doing that in Colby Cave, or a guy like Sam Gagne. There's a great number of possibilities. Don't forget Cooper Marody. Don't forget Kyler Yamamoto. There's too many possibilities to fill that hole outside of drafting another young kid to fill it. So Alex Turcotte, I'm not high on him. There's a couple of guys in here that I am high on, however. 6 foot, 166 pound Trevor Zegras. This is another centerman. Same thing. Think Patrick Kane in terms of puck handling and playmaking. Yeah, okay, that's fine and dandy, right? Centerman, but I guess to rule out Trevor Zegras just based on being a centerman, when you get a description like that, maybe not. The stats, what they say about Zegras is it's kind of an amazing one. U18 team, 78 points in 55 games. US NTDP, that's going to be the acronym I have to try and memorize. 40 points in 27 games. Okay, those are good points. I mean, probably matches up with that. And for a guy that is 6 foot, 166, small weight, can build a lot of muscle over the offseason, put in a good work regimen, and maybe get a lot bigger. 6 feet, not bad for centerman, but if you're going to get Trevor Zegras with the 8th overall pick, I think as the Oilers, you'd have to be looking at him as a winger. And we've already kind of done that with a guy like Kailer Yamamoto, and that hasn't worked, but Yamamoto's a lot smaller, mind you. So, again, this toss-up of having to pick a centerman with the 8th overall pick, it's tough. But everybody rated 6 through 10 is actually centerman, other than Matthew Boldy, who we'll get to at number 9. So, again, if you're looking at any of these guys, you almost have to look at turning them into left wingers. Now, if you're in camp trade Nuge, have at it in the comments. I'm not going to be exactly the friendliest because that just up here don't make sense. And this is also assuming, what I'm doing is I'm assuming that Leon Draisaitl is the top line left winger next season. So hold off on saying, well, we actually have all these guys. Why are you even worried about centerman? So don't worry there. I guess I need to outline where my perspective comes from before giving you guys the reasons why I'm already outruling some of these guys in the 6 through 10 spot. Kirby Dach, this is a guy, you want to talk about a guy you could convert to being that second line left winger or possibly that first line right winger. Kirby Dach is an absolute beauty with Saskatoon Blades this year. He's been great, and I mean, he's been great all his junior career. 10 points in 19 games to start off in 16-17 playing for the Fort Sask Rangers midget AAA. In fact, you guys know what? I had some guys I knew from Junior B that year who played on that team. So, small world connections, right? Well, for Kirby Dach, then he goes and puts up 46 points in 52 games in 17-18. And here's the fun one, 73 points through 62 games in 18-19 with 8 points in 10 games of playoffs. So, good for Kirby Dach, a good little season. Obviously, there's some knocks to his game for sure. Every young kid has them, but cerebral game with everything in place to become a top-notch NHL player. Would love to see more consistent pushback. And there you go. That's the thing that all of a sudden, yeah, the pounds, the 6'3", oh, it sounds good. But if there's already hesitation about his pushback game, and you look at how the Oilers have coached their young guys to push back over the years, ooh, man, back off, back off. That's not where I'm liking it. So the top 3 guys I've already mentioned, I'm not in love with. But you get a description of 6'1", 187 pound Matthew Boldy, who is listed as a left winger on the U.S. National Development Team. Size and skill combination protects a skill power forward. Well, guys, right there, maybe what we need on that top line, right? Think Patrick Maroon, or think a guy like what Milan Lucic is supposed to be on the second line that can actually produce. Think about that. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? I think it would. So Matthew Boldy, a guy who I guess makes sense to me just based on very limited information, but you look at what he's done. He's committed to Boston College next year, so that's a scary thought. If you draft him 8th overall and he goes to Boston, well, man, I'd prefer to have him in the minors seasoning, but you have him in Boston, maybe not the worst either, because you call him up when you're in the playoffs and you have an injury and you have a Cale Makar situation. Have an okay, good game, fine, fair, fancy, good to go. And he's had some numbers, not exactly the eye-catching numbers that I think the other few have had. 43 points in 28 games, that's about on pace in 18-19 with the juniors team. The U18 team wearing the A, he's had 72 points in 58 games, so not quite there, but off by a couple of games and a couple of percentage points, but still all around a very solid season for Matthew Boldy. And you got to think, that's a game he could play. High penalty minutes, 28 penalty minutes, so maybe he's the option. And the last option, which I would absolutely kill myself laughing if the Oilers ended up choosing Payton Krebs, because that's who I chose in my Oilers franchise mode in NHL 19 this past year. 5'11", 180-pound Payton Krebs will be better to show off his skill by playing with better players at the U18s. So obviously they're saying Payton Krebs on the Kootenay Ice, who are relocating to Winnipeg, if I've got the story correct. Well, he didn't have skilled players to play with. Should also find inspiration on a team that will have a chance to win. There's the problem. If you're saying you need to draft a kid so he has inspiration to play, scared away. You see what I mean? That's why, based on these descriptions and based on knowing what limited information I know about these guys, it's kind of scary to see what could be projected. I mean, 68 points in 64 games as the captain of Kootenay. Not the eye-catching numbers that a top 10 pick normally has. And when you go over to the 54 points in 67 games last year, not quite as great either. But for a Calgary, Alberta product, I mean, for the Oilers, another Alberta product, really, is it all that great? Like, those are the guys in the top 10. And I've explained, and I'm really not in love with any of them. Matthew Boldy's the one that jumps off the page most for me that fits a need for the Oilers, but I don't know. I'm a hard sell on actually using this draft pick. In my opinion, based on 6 through even 12, the best solution for the 8th overall pick is indeed to trade it if you're the Edmonton Oilers. That's my clear-cut opinion, and I don't think any amount of information is going to change that in my mind. Because there's a lot more damage you could do with trading that pick, finding a team like a Pittsburgh or somebody who's willing to take a chance on a guy who needs inspiration to win like Payton Krebs, or a guy who is going to go and sit in college for a year and go through class in hockey. I don't know. I think we could move somebody like a Larson, a Russell, Lucic. Yeah, I'd love to, but I don't know what Ottawa gives up to get a top 10 pick. I really don't. And then you really think, well, about Zegras as well. So there's a couple of solutions that can be used by that 8th round pick, or 8th overall pick, and I really don't see the fact that using it to pick another kid is the solution. Guys, I'm Tyson, this is Stolany TV. What are your thoughts? I need to hear them in the comments below, because we've already kind of discussed this on draft lottery night, right? I said it was great trade bait. Lots blew up. Everything was going crazy. And we had a great old discussion about it. I think that video is still getting like 20 views a day, so thank you so much for that. But we need to actually discuss this in terms of looking at who's available to us in the top 10, in the range that we'd actually be able to grab them, and see what happens. Guys, I'm Tyson, this is Stolany TV. As always, I will catch you in the next one.